Hello everyone, welcome to today's current affairs session of Civilspedia. The topics we are going to see is Index of Industrial Production, Bioplastic, National Pension Scheme, and with respect to editorial topics is Power Sector. The first one, Index of Industrial Production. The Index of Industrial Production, recent news with respect to this is, there was a huge amount of increase in the growth of this industrial production. So the IIP rate has been increased tremendously in this October month release of this IIP. So before going into this IIP, let us see about a broader classification of this. So first one, economy has been classified into three types, that is primary, then industrial sector, and then the service sector. Among this industrial sector, it has the four components, so manufacturing, construction, mining, and electricity. In this industry sector alone contributes for the GVA, that is gross value added, about 31.2%. So among this 31.2%, manufacturing has the classification of 18.1% of share of GVA, and this construction will have 8% share of GVA. Then mining will have 3% of GVA, and then electricity, gas, and other utility will have this 2.2% of GVA. So this is the share of industry with respect to the whole economy. And within that industry, this index of industrial production will calculate the growth of this industrial production. So the IIP will consist of three dominant factors, that is manufacturing, mining, and electricity. It will not include construction. So the three composition of this in IIP is 77.6% of manufacturing, 14.4% of construction of mining, and 8% of electricity. So this is the three dominant factors that is contributing to IIP. And with respect to IIP, the base year has been revised from 2004 to 5 to 2011 to 12. And this IIP will be released for monthly with 6 weeks of delay. So this is released by CSO, that is Central Statistical Office. Under this comes under this Ministry of Statistics Program Implementation. And recently they have revised these items that will come under this IIP. So it will have 865 items under this IIP. Based on that, how much the industrial production has been growth, that will be measured under this IIP. So recently, under this electricity sector, this renewable energy has been included. So from this year onwards, we will have the data of renewable energy on a monthly basis under this IIP. So we can understand the trend analysis of this IIP. So recent trend of this IIP is, in 2016 to 17, the IIP was 4.6%. While 2017 to 18, it was 4.3%. That is, it is showing a declining trend. And in spite of this declining trend, this last month, it was a huge amount of increase. So it has grown for this 8.1% in this October month, because we will get a 6 weeks delay of the data. So for the October month data will be released in this December. So in this December, when the data was released, it shows that October month we have 8.1% of industrial growth. So industrial production growth, the main factor that is contributing this much amount of hype in this industrial production is due to the infrastructure that has been led by this government-based lending of this. That makes this infrastructure to grow a lot. That makes this IIP has been grown to this much amount of 8%. And with respect to this IIP, the IIP will be classified under two classifications. One is sectoral classification, another one is use-based classification. This sectoral classification is earlier we have seen. That is the three dominant factors, that is manufacturing, mining, and electricity. These three will come under the sectoral classification of IIP. While with respect to use-based classification, it has 6 categories. The first one is this primary goods, that has a contribution of 34% of weightage. And second one is capital goods, 8.2% of weightage. Then third one is intermediate goods. Then fourth one is infrastructure or construction goods. And fifth one is consumer durables. And sixth one is consumer non-durables. These 6 are the categories of use-based classification of IIP. So sometimes in the newspaper we will get to know this primary goods weightage has been increased. That shows this. If they are going beyond this 34% of weightage, then it shows that there was a hype in this primary goods. Like that we used to have. So the major among this use-based classification, this primary goods has the highest weightage and this capital goods has the lowest weightage. And with respect to this sectoral classification, manufacturing will have this highest classification weightage and electricity will have this lowest weightage. And the next topic is the bioplastics. A bioplastic is nothing but it is a plastic that has been derived from biological renewable resources. So normal plastics will be derived from this non-renewable petroleum products, while this bioplastics will be produced from renewable products of renewable energy. So major this bioplastics is nothing but it is a conversion of this sugar from this renewable biomass into a polylactic acid or polyhydroxy alkanoates. So it has been transformed, this sugar has been transformed in this polylactic acid or polyhydroxy alkanate, so that it will have a durable polymers that can be used for this plastic production. So the reason used with respect to this plastic production, bioplastic production, is whether this bioplastic is really good for the environment or it's just a greenwashing. That is, the companies are making a profit by making that it is an environment friendly one. That is the biggest question mark before this bioplastics. So what are the pros of this bioplastic is, it is an environment friendly one. That is, it is a climate neutral one. And second important thing is, it will give energy security, because if we started to divert this petroleum based from this plastic production instead of that into another things, then we will have energy security, because about 8% of total oil production has been utilized for this plastic production only. So if we started to produce from this non-renewable sources, then this amount of 8% of oil can be utilized for other utilities. And third important thing is, it will strengthen this rural economy, because to meet this demand of this bioplastic, industry will start to procure this biomass from the farmers. So the rural economy will going to strengthen by this bioplastic. And what are the challenges that has been lies beyond this bioplastic is, first one is this, whether it is a great green growth or it is a false promise. That is, the company is greenwashing the consumers that it is an environment friendly one. The recent example of this one is, it is not all the products of bioplastics is an environment friendly, because a normal plastic is degradable, but it takes a longer time. That's why that is the problem of this normal plastic, synthetic plastics. While this bioplastic is not everything is easily degradable. There are some bioplastics that takes much more longer time to get degrade. For example, this biopolyethylene and biopolyethylene terephthalate. These two takes a longer time of degradable. So it shows that if all the bioplastics is not that much easily degradable, and it gives a positive great hope. And second important challenge of this bioplastic is, to meet the demands of this bioplastics, if there will be a larger number of massive deforestation, as well as there will be a great expansion in this cropland to produce more and more biomass, thereby we can convert into a bioplastics. So if more and more massive deforestation as well as this cropland has been extended, then it will lead to release of more amount of greenhouse gas emission. That makes there will be a tremendous change in this land use policies. So it will have greater negative impact on this environment. So for meet the demand of this bioplastic, if we started to produce more and more biomass, then there more and more crops like sugarcane, then it will make bioplastics will nothing but it is not the negative end of this bioplastics. And third important thing, challenges with respect to this bioplastic is this biofuel experience. Because already we have a third generation, fourth generation of biofuel that is more environment friendly one, but that was not meet under the demands of the people. So it was not enter into the sector, this economy at a much faster level. So this bioplastics will also get the fate of this biofuel. That is, it is not getting the right attention that it needs to be sought in this climate change scenario. So what is the way forward we can do to make this bioplastics to be a successful one is, first thing is, we have to make this environment of producing this bioplastic with the already existing infrastructure. Because if we started to procure a new equipments or machines to make this bioplastic, it makes the capital cost to be high. That makes this bioplastic sector not to be grow that much level. So we have to make technologies that will already fit into this existing infrastructure of synthetic plastic production, so that this bioplastic can be easily produced using this normal existing resources. And second important thing is, whatever the plastics we are producing, it will take some amount of time to get degraded. Between that degradation period itself, it will start to pollute this land as well as this ocean. So what we need to stress more is, we need to focus on recycling plant. Because if we started to procure more and more of the recycling plants, then it will make this degradation to be much faster rate. Then it will have this positive impact on this environment. And third important thing with respect to this way forward of this bioplastic is, we need to promote of third generation and fourth generation of a bioplastics, rather than going for a crops like sugarcane and maize or corn. If we go for this algae, seaweeds, then this bioplastic will have much more friendly. Because if we started to produce the crops for this bioplastic production, then it will give the threat to this food security also, and it will have more and more water intensive plants also. So it makes this negative impact on this environment. So we need to have more for this third generation or fourth generation bioplastics, that is using this algae as well as this seaweeds. And the third important topic with respect to prelims is this national pension scheme. The recently government has announced this exemption of complete exemption for this contribution based this national pension scheme. So we will see what are the challenges of this national pension scheme and what is the advantage of this national pension scheme. This national pension scheme is nothing but it is a government backed voluntary contribution based retirement plan, and it has all the citizens, that is both government as well as this private employees can enter into this NPS, and who are aged under this 18 to 60 years can make a contribution, and thereby after the 60 years of their age they can retrieve back as a retirement plan. So the recent use of this NPS is this exemption. That is at the source, when we get introduce this account, there will be a tax exemption, and when we get investing the money, there will be also tax exemption, and when we get the corpus amount, then will be also this tax exemption, that is this EEE. And recent news with respect to this NPS is government says they will going to increase this contribution by the government to the government employees from this 10% to 14%. And third important thing with respect to the NPS is it is a market linked returns, that is this NPS will have linked with the stock market. So whatever the shares increasing or decreasing, this NPS amount will be get increased or decreased based on that. So it is a market based linked returns. So what are the measures that the government has to take, and the government and the pension regulators has to take to make this NPS has to be familiar one, because the government makes this NPS earlier, but it was not take that much level. So not many people started to involve in this NPS scheme. That's why this government recently has introduced this EEE as well as increase their contribution, so that more people will started to enter into this NPS scheme. So what other things we government and pension regulator has to do to make more people to enter into this NPS scheme? The first and foremost thing is they have to simplify these rules, because the rules consist of more and more jargon. So common people cannot understand what is the benefit this NPS scheme is providing. So we have to simplify the rules as well as shrink the menu, because it has tier 1, tier 2 account, and also there was how much shares we need to invest in this active fund management. Likewise, there was so many jargons and so many menus. There was totally 8 fund managers, and we have to choose within that 8 fund managers. That makes so much complicated for the common people to understand what is this NPS scheme. So we need to first and foremost is simplify the rules. And the second thing is we have to eliminate the differential rules between this government employees and the private employees. That makes it will be a tedious one. So we need to eliminate the rules of different rules for this government as well as this private employees. And second important measures that the government has to take is we can make the private employees to this NPS as an alternative to EPF, so that more people, private employees get entered into this NPS scheme. And third important thing is we need to shift this fund to this index based fund, that is promoting more and more investing this NPS fund into an index based one. So index fund is more safe one, and it will have less processing fee. For example, the most important advantage of this NPS scheme is it will have fund management cost of 0.01%, but it is very hard to have that much lower amount of fund management cost. So to have this lower amount of fund management to be a feasible one, we need to shift to this index based one. And fourth important task is we need to remove this end use of rules. So because we cannot dictate the people how the people has to use the money. Because right now is when the money after the 60 years of age, when they want to retrieve back all the amount, they cannot retrieve back all the amount. The 40% of corpus amount has to be invested in an annuity plan. Annuity plan is nothing but a monthly based amount that can be taken as a retirement amount. That is like an insurance plan. So they have to invest the 40% amount to be compulsorily in this insurance product. That makes the people don't have much wider choices to how to use that money. That makes not more people to involve in this NPS. So we need to remove this N rules. And what are the other challenges of this NPS is, the first one is, as earlier said, that is N based rules is the first and foremost challenges. Earlier we will have this 40%, 20%. That is 40% of the total amount, corpus amount will be a tax free one, and this 40% will have to be invested as an annuity plan, and this remaining 20% of the corpus fund will be either taken as a total corpus fund, or they can be invested in this as annuity. If they are going to take this 20% of total corpus fund as a lump sum amount, then they have to pay the tax. And also this annuity income will also be a taxable one. That makes a taxable one. So that is the negative thing of this NPS. That's why the government has recently revamped this issue. And they have made this totally that 60% of the amount can be taken as a tax-free of lump sum amount, while the rest of the 40% has to be mandatorily invested in this annuity plan. And this will before, if we are attaining after this 60 years of age. While before 60 years of age, if we wanted to take the amount, we cannot take it all the back. So we can take only 20% of the amount before the 60 years as a corpus lump sum amount, while remaining the 80% has to be mandatorily investment into this annuity. Then this annuity income is a taxable one. That makes the major challenges of this NPS scheme to be a popular one. And the last topic is this power sector. The recent issue of this power sector is it is not that much, the power sector is not meeting the demands of the people. So what are the issues with respect to the power sector, and what the solutions we can do for make this power sector to be a feasible one? So the intro of this power sector is our Indian power sector is the third largest electricity producer as well as the fourth largest consumer of electricity in the world. And what are the issues of this power sector is we have taken to 4 stakeholders of these issues. The first one is the producer, how much amount they are producing via power. And second is the distribution sector, that is from the production how much it gets to be distributed to the people. So distributing sector is the second most important stakeholders. The third one is this consumer, and the fourth one is the government. These 4 players are the important stakeholders of this power sector. So we will see the issues of each and every people, each and every sector. So what is the problem of this power production sector, and what is the problem of this distribution sector, and what is the problem of this consumer as well as this government. So first one, we will see this, what is the problem with respect to this production sector. The first challenge of this production sector is the fuel, because the domestic fuel can meet only 65% of this thermal power plant demand, while the rest of the things we have to import from, say, imported coal. And the price of this imported coal is very much high, and right now is the all-time high value for this coal. That makes this production cost to be much higher. And second important thing is this environment says as well as this coal says. That makes the rate of this coal production to be a higher one. And third important problem with respect to this fuel is this poor quality of the fuel available. That makes we need to purchase a higher quality of imported coal. And fourth important thing is this water scarcity, because this coal-based thermal power plant will require 3.8 cubic meter of water for producing 1 megawatt, while solar will have 0.1% of cubic meter of water for 1 megawatt production. Then water scarcity will make these power plants to be not to be function at the full potential. And last important issue with respect to this fuel is this long-term power purchasing agreement. There was a mini tug of war between this generation companies and this distribution companies and this coal-based companies with respect to this power purchasing agreement. And second important problem with respect to this production sector is this underutilization. About 2/3 of the thermal power plant that we are running in the country is running at the rate of 55% of the total capacity. That is, the remaining 45% is not utilized properly. That makes this underutilization is the most important problem of this production sector. And third important issue of this production sector is this emission. They cannot meet the emission standards at right now the government is enforcing. Because of to meet this Paris agreement, the government is enforcing a much revised environment panel of this emission sectors. So, but this emission parameters cannot be met by our thermal power plants or other based power plants. So, what is the issue of this is to install this anti-pollution equipments like this flue gas desulfurization and fabric filter and selective catalytic reducer. These 3 things are the anti-pollution equipment. To install this anti-pollution equipments, the installation cost will take 1 crore for 1 megawatt. That much huge amount to invest in this for reduce this emission is not available with the available thermal power plants. That makes this emission sector is mostly violated by 90% of thermal power plants. And fourth important problem of this power production is this under procurement by the states. So whatever the companies are producing, that was not procured by the states. That makes the companies has to be produced lesser than their total utilization capacity. And fifth important problem with respect to this power production is this decentralized renewable energy. Because renewable energy's most positive thing is it can be decentralized. That is, it can be produced at the remote areas itself. But the major issue of this producing this decentralized renewable energy is inconsistency and instability. That makes this renewable energy cannot be connected with the grid properly. These are the 5 important issues with respect to this production of this power sector. And with respect to distribution, that is DISCOM, distribution companies, the first and foremost important issue is the financial health of this DISCOMs. So why the financial health of the DISCOMs is this much pressing need of this issue is, first and foremost thing is, we are not regularly revising the tariff. So this populist tariff scams, because this populist tariff schemes make that more government is for their vote bank, they are not increasing the tariff and they are not doing a price rationalization. So this is the first important problem of this DISCOM. They are not getting the money for the right quality of their electricity they are producing. And second important thing is this feeder separation. So we need to do a feeder separation for the agriculture and non-agriculture feeders in these villages so that we can have better targeting. And third important thing is this absolute technology of utilization in this DISCOM companies, because they are not upgrading the technologies. Already they are in the financial burden, so they cannot invest more money in more and more advanced technologies like GIS, SCADA to implement this insufficiencies of distributions. And this may lead to this operational insufficiency. This may to hamper the growth of this financial sector of this DISCOMs. That makes less investment will be poured to this DISCOMs. This makes this DISCOMs to be at a very poor financial burden. And fourth important problem with respect to this DISCOM is aggregate technical and commercial losses. This technical loss is nothing but when the electricity is passed through this wire, there will be a more loss due to heat. And this commercial loss will include this theft and default for payment, then inefficient billing and inefficient collection. These all comes into this commercial losses. This both technical and commercial losses will make this 25% of total production losses. This is one of the very high among the world, because most of the Asian countries will have AT&Cs as a 5%, while India is having a 25%. And we have made a target of reducing this ATC losses. For example, in 2002-3, we have introduced this Accelerated Power Development Program. Under this program, we have made a target of reducing 3% of ATC losses for the utilities that have more of losses of 30%. And for our rest of the utilities, we will have 1.5% of reduction rate. But what we present scenario is, we are reducing only 1.1% per annum. So that shows we are reducing very minimal amount of ATC losses Mandi. We need to strengthen this one, and we need to reduce this ATC losses at a drastic manner. And fifth important issue with respect to DISCOM companies is high lending rate. Because this DISCOM companies has a dues of 36,000 crores to generating companies, that is GenCos generating companies. And this generating companies in turn will have a 10,000 crore rupees of dues to this Coal India and other banks. That makes the higher amount of NPA. Since NPA with respect to this power sector is increasing, that makes this power sector to be not a viable one to investment. So banks are not giving that much amount of credit to this power sector. That makes the high lending rate for this power sector. That is going to affect the financial health of this DISCOM. So it's nothing but a viscous cycle. Since there was a production, but there was not proper pay for that, then the financial health of the DISCOM is reducing. This makes more NPA from the banks. Then bank will start to give high rate of amount lending rate for this DISCOMs. That makes the financial burden of the DISCOMs to be much more. So this fiscal cycle has to be reduced down. And sixth issue with respect to this DISCOMs is to solve this financial burden of this DISCOM. We have introduced the Uday scheme, but this Uday scheme does not properly address the needs of this DISCOM. So what is this Uday scheme is nothing but, under this Uday scheme, states will take over the 75% of the debt of this DISCOM, and the rest of the 25% of the debt will be taken care by these DISCOMs. But this will not solve the problem of the financial burden of the DISCOMs, because this has lead to increase in the state's gross fiscal deficit to the GDP ratio by increasing of 0.7%. So it is increasing the burden, fiscal deficit to GDP burden of a state, rather than it is not solving the issue of this power sector DISCOM companies. And third important stakeholder of this power sector is the consumer. The consumer, with respect to the issue of the consumer, is this AAA, that is accessibility, availability and affordability. How much electricity that can be consumer can get access for getting through proper transformer and other electrical equipment, and what is the availability of the electricity throughout without interruption the consumer is getting, and the affordability that the consumer can get for paying the quality electricity. These are the three issues with respect to this consumer. And with respect to the government is this policy paralysis. The policy paralysis means in the government has making the policies of National Electricity Policy, Electricity Act of 2003 that has been amending recently into Electricity Amendment Bill of 2018, and many more other electricity policies and schemes. but there was no coordination between the schemes and these policies. That makes this the targeting achieving of 2022 every electricity, universal electricity access making to be hampered one. And what are the needed measures that we have to do to address these issues of this power sector? First and foremost thing is we have to address this fuel reforms, because we need to make an optimal fuel mix of this conventional as well as non-conventional fuel into be a mixed one. That makes the dependence on this non-conventional fuel, this conventional fuel will be reduced one. So that is the first and foremost fuel reforms we need to make in this power sector. And second important thing is we have to introduce more technologies. For that, not only for this new construction purpose, for the maintenance of the existing power plants, because the existing power plants are running at this underutilization of 55% only. That makes the capacity has to be increased up to 80 to 90%. For that, we need to have more investment in this maintenance rather than having a new production process. So instead of having involving 1% in this production, if we started to involve in 1% in this maintenance, then it will save more amount of energy. And third important thing is we need to link this global funding agencies to fund for this fiscal problems, because by linking this global funding agencies like World Bank or Asian Development for this infrastructure, energy infrastructure, then it will make the fiscal burden of this DISCOM to be reduced down. Instead, because central government and state government cannot come all the time to rescue this DISCOM companies, so we need to link this global funding agencies to rescue this DISCOM companies. For example, we can make subsidizing this anti-pollution equipment, so that the emission levels of the production companies will be reduced down, so they can produce a more amount at a cheaper rate. Then it will be given at the market at the good rate. Then it will help to make this health of this DISCOM companies to be much more better. And fourth important thing with respect to this power sector is we need to introduce more of hybrid projects, because this major problem of this renewable energy is this inconsistency and instability, because the solar power cannot produce all the time. During the night time it cannot be produced, and each and every wind energy cannot produce all the year. It is a seasonal one. Like that, all the energy, renewable energies have one disadvantage of inconsistency. To nullify this inconsistency issue, we need to have more and more hybrid energy system, that is mixing two or more non-conventional and conventional energy system to make a continuous supply of renewable energy. And fifth important task needed to be with respect to this energy reforms is price rationalization. We need to have revised this tariff of this electricity regularly, so that the people are not getting burdened, because the people are tax paying and the non-tax paying people started to get benefit of this prices of electricity. So we need to have major price rationalization. And sixth important topic with respect to this power sector is direct benefit transfer. Recently, government has been proposed in this electricity amendment bill of 2018. They showed that they are going to introduce this DBT, that is direct benefit transfer, so that it will have this better targeting of the subsidies. And the important thing of this electricity amendment bill of 2018 also shows that we will have this freeing this renewable energy from licensing requirement. That makes this renewable energy sector to be grow at a much faster rate. And eighth important task of this needed measure of power sector is recently we have introduced this Saubhagya scheme, that makes this electricity access to the people as a universal one. We need to have invest more on this universal accessibility, because that is the first and foremost task we have to do. Then only the whatever we are producing, that will reach the people easily. And another important task is we have to, with respect to this government sector, is we need to have a balanced regulatory intervention, because we need to have an optimal level of players from this production and generation as well as this consumer. So we need to have a proper regulatory mechanism. Thereby it will increase this accountability and auditing of this power sector. So because more and more companies are not paying the dues properly, the theft and the payment, delay payment or default payment makes this power sector's DISCOM companies to be a higher pressure one. So we need to have a balanced regulatory mechanism, so that we will have a stronger action against this defaulter and power theft people. And important task of reforms is needed is this customer-centric approach. We are not right now has this customer-centric approach. We need to have provide the quality of electricity at the affordable rate to the customers. That is the major underlying principle of this customer-centric approach. And last important thing is the government, we need to have more and more policies that are pro-investment one. So more investment will be attracted towards this energy sector. So right now this private players are not properly attracted towards this energy sector. So government has to make more pro-investment policy, so that more and more private players started to play in this electricity sector. With that thing, we will today's current affair session. Thank you. Have a nice day. Like and share in this comment.